Hi, I'm Miss Tomlin. I'm a 7th grade English teacher at Abington Middle School. I'm here for a special Oscars edition of Movie Time with Matt and Derek. We're going to discuss all the pictures nominated for the Oscars this year for the 92nd on Sunday.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about the Oscars.
Yeah, for sure.
Predictions, who we want to win.
Right.
All that type of stuff. Because it's different.
Because there's always who do you think is going to win and who do you want to win.
Yes.
That's
Right.
always two different.
Sometimes it's the same.
Sometimes it lines
not.
up, yeah. So we'll see.
It's nice when it does line up.
It does, yeah.
For sure.
So, Ms. Tomlin, let's start off.
Yeah.
What was your favorite movie this year?
So my favorite movie that I saw this year that was nominated for Best Picture. Let's
Yeah,
make that
let's
caveat
clarify
there.
that.
Like, I mean, obviously there's movies and there's films. So my favorite movie that was nominated for Best Picture, I thought was Jojo Rabbit. I thought that was really interesting, and I know you haven't watched the last 20 minutes
Yeah, I
yet,
know.
but the
I had
last
to go
20
to
minutes
work.
is really what
Yeah.
kind of solidified it for me. So I won't say why, but get to the end.
Interesting. I'm going to
Give it to the
tonight.
end, yeah.
I'm finishing up all my loose ends tonight for Sunday's Oscars.
There's a couple twists in that
Yes.
movie that just the last 20 minutes definitely make it worth it. It was Wes Anderson-like,
Definitely.
but not as campy and quirky. He's not really one of my favorite directors, but I thought, Waititi did a great job doing his own thing.
Absolutely.
And like, if you try to explain the plot of that movie to someone,
Yeah.
it sounds like a
ridiculous,
tough
yeah.
sell. But
Yeah.
for anybody who doesn't know, it's basically this young boy living in Nazi Germany, and he's part of the Hitler Youth.
Yes.
And he's got an estranged father, so his imaginary friend that kind of helps him out is, in his mind, Hitler, because he's been indoctrinated to want to be Hitler's best friend because he's in the Hitler Youth and all this stuff. And it sounds crazy enough already, but then on top of that, you find out that it's actually a dark comedy.
Yes.
And that's a tough sell. But they did it very sensitively, and it was well done, I thought.
It was
so,
well done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really
Very-
liked
yeah.
it. I really liked it.
I can speak to like the comedy and like the early parts of the movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it was like too edgy or like offensive
No.
or anything like that. I thought
definitely
they did
not.
a good job with that
Yeah.
type of stuff for sure. with
I
Jojo
mean,
Rabbit.
part of the comedy in that movie is they're highlighting how ridiculous
Yeah.
Right.
the fanaticism was during World War
Yes.
II. So, I mean, it's not glorifying anything or
agree.
anything like that. So I think, the way that the comedy is used is actually to, like, make fun
Yes.
of
Exactly.
how
Yeah.
that, and it kind of makes you take a look at, like, what's going on around the world, too.
Yeah.
So it's timely, but it's also a period piece, so it's pretty interesting. So,
I
yeah.
thought it was great.
What about
Can't
you
wait to-
guys?
can't wait to finish it.
What's your favorite?
My favorite was Joker.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Hands down.
I'd have to agree. Out of the nominated ones.
Out of the nominated ones, you like Joker the
yeah.
best? Yeah.
If I was one of the voters, I
Yep.
would have it win every category. I don't think it will, obviously, but I mean,
no,
it
there's
did
a couple
receive
it'll, yeah.
11 nominations,
Yes.
Right.
and I'm
it did.
thrilled that it did because it's a fantastic.
And there's a few in
movie.
particular that I'm really adamant about for wanting that movie to win. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
actors in that movie to win. So
I mean, I think Joaquin Phoenix is a lock
yeah.
for
Yeah.
that. I mean, there's some great performances in that category, but all the discussion has been leading up to it's going to be him essentially. So I mean, and that was my pick for best actor as well.
All right, so we
He was
can
great.
start there.
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Best
Sure.
actor. So
A little
I also
cheat sheet
agreed.
here.
I had to get mine.
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
I remember off the top of my head that I also picked
There you
Joaquin
go.
Phoenix.
You picked
Absolutely.
Joaquin. So did I.
As-
So we all agree.
as both my
Yes.
prediction and who I won.
Yeah, same.
That would end up.
I'm a big Leonardo DiCaprio fan for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Huge Leo fan. Like I would
Yep.
probably say, and it sounds like, of course, but he's my favorite actor. There's
He's a great actor.
Stuff
He
that
is.
he's
He
done.
is.
It's not just like because it's Leo. It's because he's actually great. But he was thought he was great in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but then you see Joaquin Phoenix, and that's like transformative. He's actually, everybody who's ever played the Joker has really. That's a tough
It is. It's a hard
psychological and emotional role to take on, and
Yeah.
he did it, and I think again it's timely, so it works really well. That's a good
If
pick.
like they wanted to just say like, you know what, everyone expects him to win, let's just mess it up.
Right, let's just
I
throw
think
it
the
somewhere
only
else.
person that could even like come close to rivaling him is Adam Driver in Marriage Story.
See, I thought Adam Driver was okay in Marriage Story,
Really?
and I know I've been talking to a lot of people. I have a lot of differing opinions on Marriage Story than most people I've spoken with. I thought it was good. I can see that it's definitely, you kind of get an eye after you watch a lot of Oscar-nominated movies. You can kind of tell, okay, they're going for the Oscar, or this is
Right,
such an
yeah.
Oscar-type movie.
Yes.
It definitely was when I was watching it. He was great, but I don't think it's the best I've ever seen him do. I've been watching Adam Driver since Girls, which you guys probably have never
HBO,
seen.
yeah.
And he has some scenes in Girls that I think he acted better there than he did in Marriage Story. He was still good. It was still, it was a good film.
Yeah.
It was a good Oscar film, but it was okay.
Yeah.
The one scene everyone talks about, obviously, is when
Yeah.
he punches the wall. There's just a couple points in that scene where it almost seemed like my line, your line, my line, your line. It was weird. It was kind of weird. And I'll talk about why I don't really think that the two of them were standouts when we get to supporting actress. So that'll make more sense. Yeah.
All right. For the next category, do you guys want to talk about achievement in film editing?
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
So you guys want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
I think Ford versus Ferrari.
That's what
will
I
win.
picked too. Yeah.
Yes. I didn't finish this film, but from what I saw, it's very well edited.
Yeah. And it's up against The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and Parasite.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the thing is, I don't know if you guys, you are obviously, how the voting works is it's not just people in the particular category
Right.
that of their expertise that are voting. It's anyone who's a voter in
Right.
the academy is allowed to vote.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, when it comes to like sound mixing or film editing or things like that, they're not really 100% sure
Yeah.
what it is. And typically, I was reading something the other day, and I agreed with it. With Ford versus Ferrari, you're going to get those cuts back and forth of outside the car, in the car, the fast cuts, like of the cars going quickly, and the quick cuts. It says a lot of voters that don't really understand how like editing works
Right.
necessarily, like subtlety of editing. Usually go for there's a lot of fast cuts, so
Yeah.
that's a lot of great editing. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
that makes
it
sense.
was well edited. It was a great movie.
Yeah.
The other ones in the category, I think, also when you come down to editing, you got to think about, like, are you cutting time off the end? And
Right.
are you picking the pieces that you need? And The Irishman's obviously 3.5 hours long.
Yeah.
What I thought was really good in terms of editing, not necessarily like quick cuts or anything, but Parasite was edited
Yeah.
in a way that it had like a really nice cadence to it. They did a great job editing that, so it flowed nicely, and you weren't saying like, all right, this movie's gone 20 minutes over where it should have or something like that. I think they did a nice
Right.
job. But I'm going Ford versus Ferrari just
Yeah,
because
me
of,
too.
yeah.
I'd also agree.
Yeah.
From what I've read.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ford v Ferrari.
For sure.
I mean-
I've heard that's what I've heard. Like where with Joker,
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about Joaquin Phoenix and like everyone's thinking he's gonna be best actor. I've
Right.
heard similar things about Ford v Ferrari and
Right.
best
I
editing.
mean,
so.
I'm a little bit biased, but I think Joker did have great editing.
For
in
sure.
it.
Yeah.
But I think Ford versus Ferrari will definitely.
I think it's going to get it. Yeah. It's tough when it's, like I was saying, it's tough when it's like the subtle editing and like
Right.
you
Right.
guys spend your time editing, and
Yeah.
I've done some in the past, not on Oscar level, but you're looking at it a little bit differently when you understand kind of, like
Right.
how the process is done. So, but it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. Next, we have Best Original Score.
Okay.
Just tell me what's your.
I'm going Displa for Little Women.
Really?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think hands down it'll be. I'm gonna butcher their pronunciation.
It's okay.
Hildur Gudnadar.
Gudnadar.
Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 40-year-old Icelandic woman
Yeah.
who did the score for.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It's amazing. Yeah.
My thing with Displa is I'm just a big fan of his to begin with, and he's won in the past, and
Yeah.
he has like just these. I was talking with my roommate the other day, who she and I both have seen all the movies nominated for this season, and we were just talking about how it's funny when there's a scene in Little Woman where they're on the beach, and it's the 1870s, and when you listen to the music after, just as a track, it's called The Beach. It's like you're like, I can get the time period, I get where they are. It just frames it nicely. And I think they said there's only about 10 minutes of the entire movie of Little Women where there's no music playing.
Oh, wow.
So he scored the entire film, like
Yeah,
from
that's
beginning
impressive.
to end, and it works really well. I don't know if he will win. I've been hearing a lot about. I am gonna ruin the name too. Our nice
Yeah.
Icelandic friend, but for Joker, I've been hearing Joker might take it, but
Yeah.
I'm a huge
Yeah.
Displa fan.
I mean, I
so.
was thinking Star Wars too.
Star
Just
Wars is
because
good,
It's
yeah.
classic, and John Williams, and this
Right.
was set to be his last one on Star Wars. I
Yeah,
believe.
this is his last one with Star Wars.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was like thinking about when I was going down with that one is, Star Wars is Star Wars, and
Right,
at this
and
point, I mean, he could
it's
win
the
because it's
same.
John Williams,
Yeah.
and you
That's
get,
what-
you get the
that's what I'm
cachet of,
thinking.
know.
Yeah.
But
Similar.
he's just adding on to the
Right.
themes that he did
Right.
in the 70s.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's still the same
very-
idea.
It's similar.
The skeleton
very-
is there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But it was great.
It was good.
It's John
really-
Williams. It's gonna
Right.
be
Yeah,
great.
obviously
I mean,
it's
it's
gonna
not
be
gonna
great.
be bad.
But
So.
like you said, how like nuanced is it? It's really not.
Right.
It's more of the same. added on.
Right, and you do have
tweaked
to
a little
give him
bit.
credit for
Right.
going back into his material that he made 40 years ago and being like, how do I make this fresh, new,
Yeah.
still sound like Star Wars without me just repeating
Yeah.
the same things
Right.
over and over again. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, especially when it's John Williams, you never know.
That's where I was at. For
But
my
I think,
prediction.
yeah,
But,
I would be upset, but not
Yeah,
surprised.
right.
But
That's where I'm
not
at,
at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, next up, best production design. Ms. Tomlin, what were your?
All right, so I have not seen the entirety of 1917 yet, but from the clips that I've seen and what I've read, I'm going with 1917 just because of creating, trench warfare
Yeah.
is a lot.
Yes.
And the clips that I've seen, how it looks, that takes a lot. I did like Jojo Rabbit as well. But it's the same kind of idea of like war-torn towns and things like that. So I feel like that's almost sometimes more difficult. The thing with Jojo Rabbit this is my want versus going to win thing.
Yeah.
They have the town perfectly preserved at the beginning and it's
Yes.
deteriorating as it's
Yeah.
going on. So the production design for that is, what level of wear and tear do we have at this point in the film and like how destroyed do we want it to look at the end and how do we make it look authentic and things like that. But, between the trenches of 1917 and then them having to do that
Yeah.
as well, I think that kind of pushes it over the
I
edge.
was at 1917 for this
Yeah.
one.
Me as
That's
well.
what
All
I
right,
said.
I think we're all on the
Just
same page.
because obviously with the way they did one take, they kind of had to have things ready in the right spots, and obviously like that end scene where he's running and people are running through and stuff's flying all over the place.
Yeah.
Another one that comes to mind is when they're in the cave and it's collapsing in. Like they'd have to set that all back up if
Right.
they had to do a retake.
Yeah.
So I think just like the complexities of that, where you have to do this production design as well, like incorporate that with the one take style,
Right.
is like very impressive that they pulled it off in the way they did.
Yeah, and I feel like if it wasn't the one take style, I mean,
Right.
you can tell where there's little
Yeah.
cuts.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't the one take style, I would edge it to Jojo Rabbit. But I'm kind of leaning that way,
Right.
just like you've been leaning for Joker. I mean,
Yeah.
we all
Exactly.
have like the one that we're
Yeah.
really pulling for, but
Yeah.
necessarily mean it's
It's
gonna.
like walks away with like all the awards.
Yeah, you just-
Like,
Yeah.
a basket of them.
Yes, I was right, but you never know.
Next up is achievement in sound editing.
All right. So I always just like to double check because I know editing and
See what I
mixing can get confused.
Yes.
So to my knowledge, editing is more of, and you guys can correct me on this, editing is actually more finding the sounds and putting them in the right place, and then mixing is like kind of how they're balanced throughout. Is that more
I believe
my
so,
understanding
yes.
of it?
That's right.
I went 1917 on both of them because I think typically in the past I think the last 8 years or 8 years out of the past 10 or something, again, the voters don't necessarily understand the difference between sound editing and mixing. I
Yeah.
feel like I still really don't
Right.
get it. So what typically happens is you have the same film when editing
Right.
and mixing
And
because
mixing.
they don't want to separate it because they don't know how to separate
That
it.
makes sense.
So that, and then usually you get those movies where the sound is cool, war movies, or Ford versus Ferrari is the only thing
Right.
I could think would
Oh,
come
yeah,
behind
that
that
makes
sense.
with the sounds of the racetrack and stuff like
Yes.
that. It's usually big action sounds
Yeah.
that win the
Yes.
Oscar there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also had 1917, and I think it did good. Even though those two can be confusing, I think
Yeah.
it did good at both. Because with mixing,
Right.
you don't want someone's voice to be as loud as the explosions,
Right.
or you don't, so. It's also like prioritizing, like a bullet. You don't want to be louder than this,
Right.
and like you want to make sure things are as loud as they should be, right?
And they always
Yeah.
they always say, I don't know who they are, but they always say the way to kind of tell the difference between the editing and mixing is with editing, it's there needs to be the sound of a train, and then the mixing is how far away is the
Right.
train,
Yeah.
or how close is the
Yeah.
explosion or something like
Yes.
that. And with a war movie, it needs to be pretty
It
precise.
does, because it can break your immersion really fast.
Easily,
And
yeah.
also, you don't want like the voices to be loud and then this to be like ridiculously loud just to like go over that.
Right.
And then so you want it to still like feel like you're there, and something like sound mixing can break your immersion in the movie.
Exactly.
Especially in 1917, where it really wants you to be immersed, like you're another soldier with them almost.
Yeah,
with
you're
that.
you're walking
what I mean?
along, right?
Yeah.
The
Right,
whole
yeah.
So I think
I
that was
actually
very
had
important.
Ford versus Ferrari.
that
to
was
win
my
this one.
backup
Yeah.
there, though. So
I can definitely
totally
see
see it.
1917 winning
Yeah.
though. I mean, if there is a split, I think 1917 could win sound mixing.
Yeah.
And Ford versus Ferrari
Would
wins
do
sound
editing.
editing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Like you said, with the one film winning both, that's what happened last year with Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right, and it's typical recently. Not,
Yeah.
I mean, there's been 92 ceremonies, but I mean, it's been typical recently that whatever wins in one will win in the other.
Right.
But, you know, you could flip the script this year and it could be completely different.
Yeah.
That would be nice, actually.
That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Just everyone gets a trophy. Just
Exactly. Spread them around. Everyone gets, gets an award. Good.
Next up, achievement in visual effects.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Tomlin, what'd you think for this
Pull
one?
this up here. You think I would unlock my phone at this point, but let's see. Where are we on there? Visual effects. What do you have while I'm looking for
I
it?
have Endgame. Avengers
Endgame.
Endgame.
I had The Lion King.
I have The Lion King as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
And my backup was actually 1917.
So my
Interesting.
backup, I actually had The Irishman because that de-aging technology, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you think about if we're just doing de-aging, you could think Star Wars too.
Yeah, that's true as well.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars has the effects of, you know, space. They have to create that
Right.
whole, I mean,
Well,
you're,
right.
you're not
That's
like,
why
we're not
I
filming
did
on
end up
location.
going-
So like that.
Yeah.
But then
Right.
they also have the de-aging in
Right.
2 places, I think, in the film.
Yes.
Yes.
2 separate places.
Yeah.
I still have a problem with when Star Wars uses their de-aging like across it. Even when I saw Rogue One,
Yeah.
it still looks that uncanny
Yeah.
valley kind of.
Right.
But The Irishman
That's why I
looked much better.
Right.
So,
that was my
so I
backup.
agree with
But
you
the
on that.
reason I ended up going with Endgame is I felt like I was, you know, after Infinity War seeing Thanos, and they did such a good job with that.
Yeah.
Really did.
And then on top of that, all the other stuff that they did, just you know, like having all those superheroes on screen at
Right.
one time, having the portals, like everything. I'm really big on like the immersion aspect. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to be taken out of a movie
Right.
by like something looking dumb or something
Yeah.
sounding not right.
Right.
So it's like I feel like they had a really big challenge and they still were able to, with visual effects, make it look real. And I wasn't like brought out of the film by anyone in
Right.
particular.
And one of the things of like theater is like if you're sitting in the audience and you say, "Wow, that was a really good special effect."
Yeah.
That's great that the audience is noticing it's a special effect, but as soon as they say that was a great special effect, you haven't succeeded at your job because
Right.
they're
Right.
focusing on the fact that it's an effect and not
Yes.
just part of the immersion of the movie.
Right.
So that's actually a really
Exactly.
good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I was. Like,
Excellent. yeah.
The reason I didn't have 1917 as my backup
Yeah.
is because I don't think there was really too many visual effects because they did a lot of practical effects in that film. So
That's a
that
good
was
point.
kind of, I heard like people saying like, oh, I think 1917 is going to win. I was like, really? Like,
Yeah.
I can't really think of any visual effects for that film.
It's
'Cause there's
like
a
I'd have
lot.
to see, you know, like a featurette or something just to see
I
like actually what it
saw
looked
something
like,
like that.
and then what you did.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I saw one that was really impressive. It was about the flare during that. Oh, well,
I
I don't know, but
I was spoiled last week.
Right.
So
Actually, yeah.
it's all right.
There's a scene where he's running and it's night and like flares are being shot
Yeah.
up, and they actually had like a downsized version of the set, and then they'd have a flashlight go on like an arc to see how the shadows would be.
Yeah.
So it's like stuff like that's really
It's
neat.
it's the things like that you
Yeah.
have to think about too. But yeah, I had Lion King. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it looked incredible.
it looked amazing. Did it need to be remade? No, but like,
Absolutely
did it
not.
look really cool? Yeah, it looked good.
The way they make animals now is so
It's
cool.
crazy.
It's cool, and like my big problem with, and like they announced that they're like doing Bambi over, is just animals don't emote like humans.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing I had with it, but they made it so they weren't emoting,
Right.
and they still had to try to get some emotions out of them, and so that takes a whole other level of effect.
It's crazy.
So.
And another one with that is Call of the Wild. I'm so looking
That-
forward to
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Did you
really-
guys read that in middle school?
No.
We did not, no.
They used to teach it in 7th grade. This is back
Yeah.
when I was at the Frollo a million years ago. But they did teach that back there. But it looks really good.
I'm
and
excited.
I'm kind of happy that, I know we're getting off for a topic for a
Yeah,
quick second,
that's
but
okay.
with Call of the Wild, I was looking at Buck, the dog.
Yeah, that's how we got there. Yeah.
And, he looks a little cartoony, but he's supposed to, because
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
have, like, again, those emotions. If it was just like a dog, it would
Right.
be.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
At,
We'll
at
see
the
what
end
Lion
of the
King
first
does.
trailer, when
Yeah.
like I think it was Harrison Ford said like that's like you're on my bed.
Yeah.
And he looked like this.
Yeah,
It was perfect.
it's
Yeah.
just like Scooby-Doo kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, wait till they do a live action. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's going to be great.
All right. Next up.
Everything
Yeah.
will be live action.
Oh, yeah.
soon.
Yeah. Every cartoon ever. Which is,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we're just going to keep recycling things until we have nothing left. Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
Next up, we have best adapted screenplay.
So, what do you guys think for this one? Because I'm kind of torn on this a little bit.
I am too. Personally, of course, Joker. I mean,
Yeah.
Also, I feel like Jojo Rabbit could win this one.
That's kind of where I am, but at the same time, I have Little Women on there.
Yeah.
And I know it's like, okay, they made Little Women in, I think, 33, and then again in 94, and they've had, like, you know, made-for-TV specials. Like, how many times can you adapt Little Women,
Right.
you know? But the thing with it was that I thought it deserves it, but it's not going to win because, you know, as a voter, you're going to be like, yep, Little Women, again, moving on.
Yeah.
My thing is I've read Little Women a couple times. It's one of my favorite books. I mean, the latter third of the book is not very exciting at all. It kind of takes a turn after. I mean, the book was published in 1878, so I hope I'm not ruining it. When after Beth dies,
Oh no!
it kind of takes a turn a little bit towards being like, let's get to the point. And the way that Gerwig kind of set it up, and you guys haven't seen it yet, but when you see it, they kind of have these parallels of the latter third. So it starts with the latter third instead of going chronologically through the book.
Really?
And when I find myself typically watching Little Women, when I get towards the end, I'm like, okay, let's get to the point. But it was like I was watching it completely differently. And at first I was a little like, why are we starting here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know where it starts. But she solved the problem of, you know, it's supposed to be the resolution being like, oh, it's great. And it's not really.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit that you guys, have you read the novel at all?
No.
You should read it. It's very good. It's slow, but read it. There's a little bit that Gerwig like puts into it as well to give it kind of a modern spin. It's tough because a lot of the plot of Little Women is, you know, these women, their job is to grow up and get married, and you know, and in 2020, 2019, how are you supposed to, you know, sell that to a female audience where, you know, we have a lot of more of, you know, empowerment for women and things like that going on right now. But she kind of puts a little scene in at the end that kind of solves that problem a little bit. And I thought it was interesting. But it's Little Women, so it's not going to win. But I'd like it to. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Next up is Best Original Screenplay.
All right. This one was also tough. What did you guys have?
I had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, me too.
So I have that, and then my backup was Parasite,
Yeah.
which is a little odd of a choice. But
Yeah, I didn't really have a backup for this one. I really think
Oh,
Quentin
yeah.
Tarantino's going to take it home.
I feel like, you know, I feel bad for Tarantino sometimes because he's never won for
Best Picture
Best
or
Picture
Best
or Best
Director.
Director. He keeps winning for screenplay, but he's great at it. I mean,
He is. His dialogue is incredible.
It's fantastic.
Crazy
And
good.
if I feel like that's where that movie's going to win, and then one other category, it's definitely going to win. But yeah, it's a great screenplay.
Yeah.
It's
was
great.
good.
I mean, it takes, I don't know about how much knowledge you guys had going into it about the plot at all.
Yeah.
But I feel like even for people who, you know, necessarily have never heard of, like, you know, the Manson family and heard about Sharon Tate or anything like that, he still is able to write his way into the audience, like buying into, like, okay, this is important. I can tell this is an important scene. Because, you know, there are people who are younger who probably have no idea what that is
Right.
and didn't even realize until probably after the fact, oh, the subplot is like a real thing that actually happened.
Right.
And the climax of that movie is
It's-
just
it's
perfect.
awesome.
It's just perfect.
The way he does revisionist history.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's so much fun.
Yeah,
It is.
for sure.
Yeah. Like with the flamethrower.
Oh,
I was like,
it's so
It's so.
And like you have that like half second before he goes
Yeah.
into the shed where
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like,
like,
is
oh,
he gonna actually?
yeah.
And then he comes out
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
I saw it opening weekend.
Oh, yeah?
People were like screaming like in like a good like
Oh, yeah.
clapping,
awesome.
hooting, hollering. It was
Yeah.
like it was awesome to watch like in a collective group of people when that happened.
That's
so.
like the best way to see a movie.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Next up is Best Cinematography. I had Roger Deakins for 1917.
Yeah.
I
Hands
also
down.
did.
Yeah. That's. I
I
feel
mean-
like that's my safest like assumption.
Oh, yeah.
going
Oh,
into
for sure.
this.
I mean, it's supposed to look like one cut, and it does.
Yeah, it does.
And he did what he wanted to do, and it's great. So I mean, there's
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
not much
right.
to
There's
say
not
about
yeah, there
it.
really isn't. Because I feel like, out of like all of the Oscars, I
Right.
think this is the safest bet.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I
really
forgot
do.
to look it up, but Birdman did something similar a couple
Yes.
years ago, and I don't know if they won Best Cinematography. I
think
feel
they
like they
did.
did, and if they did, I feel like the precedent's kind of been set that like that type of long-running shot
And
is going to
especially,
get you.
and that was a long movie too.
It was,
So, like when you pull it off over that amount of time and through those type
Yeah.
of action scenes and
What's the running time for that?
like 2.5 hours.
yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
just overall, just the fact that you could accomplish that, and especially in a war movie, like
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, I feel like that there's so much going on, and it's like to get that with that one take style is just so impressive that it really can't lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of conversation that needs
Yeah,
to be
no,
had.
I don't either.
Next up is Best Supporting Actress.
I have Laura Dern.
Yes, absolutely.
Earlier I was saying I'm not a huge fan of Marriage Story. It was good. Laura Dern is fantastic.
She is.
If you've seen her in other things, I feel like that's kind of the thing. It's so different from what her typical, what her milieu would, what her stereotyped kind of role would be. She plays the mother in Little Women.
Yes.
And I mean, she's in 2 pictures that are nominated for Best Picture, and there's just the difference between the performance that she gives in Little Women compared to Marriage Story.
Yeah.
She's just fantastic. That character is horrible.
Horrible.
But
It's
such a great character.
She's
Best character in the
so
film.
enjoyable to watch.
Oh,
in that
yeah.
movie. And
You
the-
kind of end up
yeah.
rooting for her, even though she's almost like a villain in the movie.
She is.
I really, really was like, this is hands down. I don't even have a backup for it. It's,
neither.
it's her.
No.
Yeah.
I had Scarlett Johansson and Jojo Rabbit.
She was good.
I thought she was
Yeah.
really good. I thought what she brought to that character was like, yeah, I just really liked it. And you could really see like, just kind of like how she was like that mother figure. And
Yeah.
that really like shines true in
And
that movie. I feel.
Scarlett Johansson does
Yeah.
really well when she leans into the quirky.
Yes.
I feel
Yeah.
like that's kind of my thing with her when she's in like serious pieces like Marriage Story. I'm kind of like, okay,
yeah.
she's an actress. She's good. Obviously, she's a
Right.
Academy Award nominated actress.
Yeah.
But when she leans into that more,
Yeah. I think she was really good in that.
she was fantastic in
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but definitely, I mean, Laura Dern
Yeah.
is that woman in that movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because sometimes you see movies and like you're completely unconvinced that this is like a mother-son relationship, or,
Right.
you know what I mean? Or like these people don't even seem like they're a family.
Yeah, you wonder
You know
about
what I
like
mean?
who did the casting
Yeah,
on this.
yeah.
almost,
It's like these people should not be a family. Like it doesn't work.
Right.
But with Jojo Rabbit, I really felt that
Yeah.
they did a good job.
I thought the little boy in Jojo Rabbit got
Yes.
snubbed. He could have been nominated.
Yeah, he
for
did get
sure.
He was
snubbed.
good, yeah.
He could have been nominated. If Tremblay got nominated a couple years ago for Room, I don't see why this kid couldn't have
Yeah.
gotten nominated.
Yeah.
He was good.
Yeah.
Like that movie wouldn't have worked if he wasn't.
No, he was
he was.
fantastic. I mean, the subtlety, I mean, it goes from being, like a funny satire to the last 20 minutes. He
Right.
has to actually do some serious heavy
Yeah.
lifting in acting, and he's 10. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, Scarlett Johansson definitely, I think, helped him
Yes.
a little bit with
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
So that's why I was for that one, just because I haven't seen Marriage Story yet.
Yeah.
Yep. That's tonight's homework for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Next up, we have Best Supporting Actor. I know Derek and I have the same one for this one.
Yes.
Brad.
I had Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, so
it's
we
his
all
time.
agree with it.
Yeah.
It's
It
his
is.
turn.
It is. He was great. in that
Sometimes you
movie.
hate to say that because you want it to be based on merit, and he was
Right.
fantastic. I
Right.
mean, that character is fantastic.
Yeah,
but
they
you
did a
also
really good job.
want to look at, sometimes they go, all right, it's your turn to,
Yeah,
it's your
Exactly.
turn to win.
Same thing with Joaquin Phoenix.
For sure.
Because
Yes.
I mean, with the incredible work he's done, he's never won once.
I know.
Right.
It's his time too.
Yeah.
I feel like for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for Brad Pitt, the part that really earned him the nomination and hopefully will earn him the Oscar is that last third of the movie
Yep.
when they're in the house and he has to act both nonplussed by what's going on.
Right.
And unfortunately, he has to act like he's completely out of it
Yeah.
at the same
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
it's very believable. He does a good
Yeah.
job with
Yeah.
it.
You can. It
And it's
doesn't
funny
look-
too.
Yeah.
It's so
It's
funny.
so funny,
'cause
and
you-
he's
yeah.
effortless. And I was saying I was watching it with my roommate, and I said, sometimes I'm concerned that's actually Brad Pitt, like in real life, because he does it so effortlessly
Yeah.
Yeah.
that I'm like, oh, I
Because
hope
you don't
he's
want
not
that to
really
look
like
dumb. Like that can look dumb
It
so
can.
easily.
It can.
And it's like he did so good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
He did a great job.
And that's another testament to Tarantino that he can balance
For
like
sure.
true suspense with like laugh out loud comedy.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a good, really good film.
It was great.
Yeah. Next up, we have Best Actress. I don't really know what to think about this one.
So I had Renee Zellweger.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have seen Judy. It's very well done, but it's a movie like kind of like Joker, where it's like I watched it. It was depressing. I don't want to watch it again. And especially with Judy, it's based on a real person's life.
Oh, yeah.
When you find out some of the stuff, I mean, I knew going in a little bit about, what Judy Garland went through as a person, but Renee Zellweger is like, you feel horrible for her, but you also kind of detest her at the same time. She gave it everything in that movie, so I went with her. But
I chose her based on what I heard.
Yeah.
But I can't really comment too much on this one, but
check it
I'll
out
have
if
to
you get a
check
chance.
that,
It's sad when you think about the fact that it's a real person's life.
Oh, yeah.
But it's she does fantastic in it. So.
Yeah,
Check it
I
out.
also heard a lot about that.
Yeah.
So that's what I had
Plus,
as my prediction.
Judy Garland has this accent that is often, impersonated. And, with any impersonation, if you go way too over the top with it, it comes off as like a comedy impersonation.
Yeah.
Like when you see Alec Baldwin doing Donald Trump on SNL.
Right.
It's a great impersonation, but it's meant to be a comedy.
Yes.
And with her, because everyone has their like Judy Garland impression. It's almost like, like everyone can do a Christopher Walken.
Right.
Yeah.
With her, she had to sell a Judy Garland impression and make it a serious film the whole time. And I think she did a good job with it. So.
All right, next up we talked about Best Actor.
Yeah.
So past that is Best Director. I think Sam Mendes.
I'm going Sam Mendes too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's safe, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many heavy hitters in this category.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be easy.
No.
But I think in the end, Sam Mendes will come on top.
For sure.
yeah. I mean, I think he's probably the safe bet, and I think he will win. But I mean, this is Tarantino's ninth film,
Ninth.
and he said he's only going to make 10.
Yes.
So time's running out.
I know.
Yeah.
So if Sam Mendes doesn't win, I think Tarantino's the only other person that could win.
Yeah, I think I had him as my backup there, but it was
me
one of the
too.
ones where I think this is going to be the 1917 Oscars.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely.
And
For sure.
for the most part, rightfully so,
Yeah.
to be
Oh,
honest. But, yeah.
And for our last category, we have Best Picture.
I'm going 1917.
Yeah.
I know I haven't seen the whole movie yet, but I didn't want to come in here without any opinion on it, so
Right.
I read the whole
Research it,
thing.
yeah.
I watched your show last week.
Even though we spoiled it
that's
for
good
you.
research.
It's all right. It's
That's
all right.
good
I watched it
research.
for
That's
research.
good research.
So it
good
actually was super helpful.
Oh,
So without having seen the whole thing and just from what I've heard from people, what I've been reading, and the clips that I have seen, it's probably going to win. I can't imagine that it
Yeah.
won't. It's won a lot of the key award shows prior to the Oscars.
yes,
Right.
it has.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I go back and forth between that and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah. But I think I'm definitely leaning more towards 1917.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I'd want it to be Joker. I would
Right.
love
Of course.
for it to
Yeah,
be
you
Joker.
guys
That
both
would be
like.
awesome.
We loved Joker.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
But,
it was
yeah.
a good movie.
It
I mean,
was.
obviously. I mean,
Yeah, good message behind it. All timely. Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
great. But yeah, I mean, 1917 won at
The Golden Globes.
Yeah, the Golden
Yep.
Globes, and then the one that a lot of people don't watch because there's not really anything to watch, but you read about is the PGA, the Producers Guild of America Awards. In the past couple years, I think every pick they've had for Best Picture has gone on to win Best Picture. I think
Yeah.
they have like a 80% accuracy or something.
Yeah.
I don't take that as a fact. I have
Right,
to look
yeah,
that
yeah.
up, but their accuracy is pretty strong at the PGA.
That's the same with the SAG Awards
Yeah.
and Joaquin Phoenix.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
So just
Yep.
based on those, that's what I'm going with,
Yeah.
without even having seen the whole film. So
Yeah.
right.
definitely 1917.
I think Parasite has as good a chance as Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, but I still think
so.
1917 will win.
I think Parasite did a great job by, appealing to an American audience, a wider audience, but it's also nominated for Best International Film, so it's
Yes.
definitely going to win that. So at
Right.
least it's getting its Best Picture somewhere. There is that little caveat that it's
Absolutely.
international, but it'll still get its award, so
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on.
That was
Thanks,
great.
guys.
I had a good time.
Good.
We'll
So-
see what happens on Sunday.
I know we'll have
Yeah.
to reconvene at
Yeah.
some point and talk about it, so
Definitely.
it's good to chat with you guys. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
coming on.
Thanks.